You're listening to We All Go Forward, a podcast on self-leadership through setbacks. With ownership, action, and growth, be set back, only to be catapulted forward into a more progressed, truer you.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are up to episode 3 of the We All Go Forward podcast. I'm your host, Kim Demestein, if this is your first time tuning in. And if it is your first time, I say this is probably, it might be an interesting episode to click on, because this is essentially a part 2 of episode 2, but we're just calling it episode 3, right? I just want to confuse you. And you got to go take a look at that, listen to that episode to know what my whole theory was. But ultimately, we talked about preparation being the antidote in terms of how we respond to surprises. So this is all about the tips in terms of, okay, if we're talking about preparation, right? How do I get prepared? And these tips are going to kind of help you get prepared to deal with the setbacks. You follow me? Okay, I think you follow me. What we will start off with, just in case, and in the description of the episode, you'll see. If you want to click here, because you're like, I'm in a setback now, I need the tips yesterday, then you'll click here. But if you have time, you'll go back. This is what I want people to take away based off of last week or last episode and now. If in life, you can definitely, I am a huge supporter, proponent of the fact that we do not have to have surprises in most areas of life, because life respects principles, it respects laws, and it's very simple. Like, so if you look at like the law of gravity, right? What goes up must come down. So if you go up on a 2 or 3 story flight of stairs and you decide, well, let me just step on out. I'm just going to take a little step off the ledge. Not much, just a little. Well, that law dictates that when you step off, you are going to end up on the ground, because that's the law of gravity. And so I look at the law of sowing and reaping, not necessarily as the opposite, but I think it's a good reflection of, or it just kind of reciprocal in view of that law. So if the law of gravity says that what goes up must come down, to me, the law of sowing and reaping, or the principle behind that, says that what you put down or put in must come up or out, right? And so if you're like, and that's essentially, what I'm talking about in terms of life doesn't have to be a surprise. There are many paths that dictate where we end up. And so if you put in 4 years at school intentionally and well, and if you put in or time for a certificate or a training or a trade, you will get that output. You will reap that. If you're like, hey, I deal a lot with negative thinking, and it's really like, it's just not getting me anywhere in life, it's not serving me, then that principle would be practicing mindfulness. You need to literally think about what you think about and like arrest. It's hard. Oh boy, those negative thoughts, they're just very passive, but you have to arrest literally what you're thinking of, and instead replace it with something that serves you better. If you're like, what, there's a lot of anxiety. What's the path to less anxiety? Well, gratitude is one path, because there's literally research done on it that gratitude lowers anxiety, or you can't have both anxiety and gratitude at the same time. If you're listing out all the things that you're grateful for and seeing all the things that are going well, or the small things that you don't count, the anxiety lessens. And so you take it how you want to take it. In relationship, if you have an outcome you want to see, there is a path there. But after you taking yourself out of the equation, meaning, right, you've ruled out the fact that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, there are these things in life called surprises, and they throw wrenches in things, and we don't like them. So as Donnie McClurkin said, after you've done all you can, after you've done all. Y'all don't bang with Donnie? Anyway, I'm gonna move on. Yes, you just stand on the fact that there could be a surprise that's it's a setback at work. in the background, okay? And so what do we do now? We have a surprise. So let's get into these tips. That's what this episode is going to be about. And then I'll give you some, like, what does that look like practically in life, right? All right, so here we go. Our 3 tips to making a turnaround from a surprise setback. Tip number 1. So the first thing you want to do, in my opinion, is to adopt a mindset of awareness and acceptance. Those are 2 very important words, and they go hand in hand, in my opinion. So what is awareness, right? I want to use an example first, and then we can kind of define it, because I think sometimes we use the word, me too, like we all use a word and we know what it means, but we don't know all that it means. And so sometimes we're just throwing the word around, but we're not getting full usage of what, how we can be applying it to our lives. And so let's say, for example, someone who's not from this country or just doesn't know, let's say they just never picked up a U.S. book or read anything on how to get a license, right? So getting a license is where they want to be, and having no license is where they currently are, right? So would you say, and I know you would agree that there are many steps in between that this person needs to get aware about, right? Perhaps you need to get aware of the fact that before you even try to get a license, child, do you have your permit? Okay. Because back when I got mine, there was a little book. They might still have the book. It might be online. I'm thinking everything's probably more digital now. But then again, the DMV, they just old school. So you never know. But anyway, there's a book. You need to take your permit. Before you take that permit, you better study. And don't you waste Miss Sharon's time at the front desk at the DMV, because you go up in there, let's say you ain't got your fees. You don't have the paper. You didn't bring your documents. Just move on out. The appointment is over. It's over. Rapido, move. Okay, they don't play. They really don't play that at the DMV. Let me help you get aware, right? That's how you would feel talking to that person. So there are fees, there are tests, there's a lot of things you have to be aware about, right? And so the reason why this is important is because if you're trying to move, remember I said getting a license is where you want to be. You can look at that as a destination. Not having a license is where you are. That's a current destination. To move from destination to destination, there are some steps, right? And so the same thing with us in life, when we're trying to move from I'm in a setback, that's one destination, to I want to be out of one. There's a lot that you need to be aware of in between. And one of the first things that I think we need to get aware of is just the fact that we're in the actual setback. I just want to let that marinate. Like sometimes we think, okay, I know where she's going. I need to get aware of how do I get from setback to out of setback, which is what this episode is about. But actually, the first thing I want you to get aware of is the fact that you're in a setback. And I know here comes the people saying, well, Kim, there's probably nobody saying that. We just like to say it just to make a point. Just pretend it's somebody that's saying, how do people not know that they're in a setback? Somebody might be thinking that. Well, guess what? We talked about this at episode 1. Bringing things from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind takes work. And if you just think a little bit, I don't even think you got to think too hard. We all know somebody in life where sometimes it's like, girl, you are in the way. Like, friend, there is a knife in your back right there. Just, yeah, right. You close. Just grab it. That one. And they just be walking around, knife in the back. They walking around missing teeth, bald spots, stressed out, and they just smiling from ear to ear. To what? I'm fine, girl. No, he's not bothering me. There's no impact. That didn't hurt me at all. I'm just fine. And you're just looking at them like, girl, that setback just did a number on you. You need to get aware of the fact that you're in one. Like, you could just put any name on it. And again, I always say that I use humor in a lot of things, but there are many serious topics that fall under this. Family members or friends who deal with domestic violence, people who deal with drug addiction. Part of the issue and why it's so detrimental is the awareness aspect. You don't know that you're not in a good way. You don't know that something is hurting you. You don't know that you need to move from this place of setback to a place of not setback, right? And so awareness that you're in one is number one. But beyond that, there are the steps in between that we got to get aware of. And so This is where I think it becomes helpful to now define awareness, right? And so whether we're talking about self-awareness or emotional awareness, they all really come into play here. But self-awareness is getting a good view or idea as to your feelings, your intentions, your motivations, your desires. This is all really important because all this has to be done in a non-judgmental fashion, right? So now that we know we're in a setback, right? We recognize I need to get out of this place. Let's get to the point of how does that make you feel? Of like what you experience, how did that make you feel? And for those who are like, I want tips. I didn't come in here for feelings. Well, guess what? The first step of anything is always going to address mindset. And this step, the adopting a mindset of awareness and acceptance, it's the mindset step. You have to do this one first. As I've said, my coach always says, you go everywhere head first. If I haven't said this on a podcast before, but you literally go everywhere head first. So mindset is it. So if you're thinking, I needed some hardcore parkour steps, well, this is the hardcore. This is probably the most hardcore step because mindset is hard. And so, yeah, before we'll get to all the who, what, where, why, we'll get to all that. But first, how did that make you feel? This is really what we don't talk about, right? It's too hurtful to kind of uncover, like, how did this really make you feel? And guess what? All the feelings you're feeling from dealing with a surprise setback at that, like we just talked about, I did all the things. I did what I was supposed to do. And I got hit with this. How does that make you feel? Because those feelings, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to normalize it for you. It's normal. It's okay. You can feel angry. You can feel rejected. You can feel sad. You can feel grief. There's nothing wrong with that. But is what we do with those emotions. And that's why awareness is key, right? We talked about moving from destination to destination when it was getting a license and how you take steps in between because those steps represent your decisions and they represent your priorities. They help you perceive obstacles. And so this is what awareness does in this setback. It helps you outline how you're feeling and your motivations to now how you're going to act. I mean, come on. We know it's not wrong to feel petty when somebody wrongs us. It's not wrong to feel petty when you're in a surprise setback. However, the way in which you respond from those feelings, those emotions, that can now put you in a place where now you're a setback for somebody else. You done worse than your own setback. You got the clink clinks on Channel 6 News like, how did we get here? I wasn't supposed to be here. Nobody was supposed to be on the clink clinks, but you are. Because you have not taken the time to look at what's motivating how I want to act right now. First of all, we just don't even look at the motivations. We just act, right? And now you're in a place where your integrity is in question. Your reputation is called. And it's just like, and you're like, if you're anything like me, like when somebody do you wrong, I match energies a little too well. And then people start looking at me like, Kim, you went too low. Me? What? So I'm the criminal. Oh, okay. I'm the criminal. Okay, I got it. And even though it sounds funny, in retrospect, I get upset about that. I'm like, dang, Kim, you was doing good. They were the criminal. Now you're the criminal. It's no fun. So again, jokes, but we don't want to now get in a place where our reputations are called into question, our integrity, our character. And that's because we're not aware as to how these setbacks are making us feel. So that way we can now understand why we want to act a certain way. We now understand our desires, our motivations, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. And so now you can take control, right? And it's not the control where you're trying to manipulate an outcome. It's the actual control from a place of your preparation. Come on now. I'm doing my fake shouting in the background. Okay. So the awareness is so important and not judging we tend to think certain feelings are sin, that it's wrong to be. No, it's not. Anybody would be angry, but let's understand how we're going to respond from that place. So you get aware that you're in a setback. You're aware of your feelings so that you can now make the right decisions to get you out of one. And so here's what you need to understand. Have grace for yourself. especially in the area of surprises, right? Like, you didn't know. You can't, I know you wear glasses. I know you got 4 eyes. But when Eyes for America, I can't think of an eye place right now. When they gave you those 4 eyes and they told you could see into the future, that's not the future they meant. They just meant you were going to see what's in front of you, okay? You're not going to bump into walls no more. But you can't see into the future, literally. So have a little grace on yourself. And I think this is really important, even when, I forget what episodes. Sometimes they all just mesh together because we're early on. As I get a little bit more episodes under my belt, maybe I'll probably just forget what I talked about. But I know I said it, but I'm just referencing. And I think we talked about the fact that sometimes, the difference between like having consequences, like when you are causing the setback, like, right? Sometimes we're the one that's experiencing the setback, and that part is a surprise. But sometimes you are the one that's causing it, like a setback in your life, setback in other people's life. And so we still talked about that there is still a degree of surprise in that, in terms of how did I get here, right? And so even we're not taking away accountability, liability, or anything like that, but you have to have grace for the fact that maybe somebody else who went through what you went through, that kind of caused you to have the scabs or the bad habits or the bad communication or the bad, you name it. And by bad, what I mean is what's unhealthy and unfruitful for you and, for those who are being impacted by your behavior. So, like maybe the majority of people who've experienced what you've experienced have given up and you haven't yet. And so just give yourself a little grace in that regards. And so the next part of this boils down to acceptance, right? And acceptance of what? What I want to say is that you're not accepting the baggage, right? Because setbacks come with a suitcase. When you take those trips like me, I say, it's just a weekend camp. You don't need 10 pairs of shoes. You don't need to dress for the president's house. But I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring the evening gown in case. I know we're going to a cabin in the woods for a weekend. But we may encounter the president. We may encounter a CEO who invites me to a gala, fundraising gala. And so I'm going to bring the evening dress. And so setbacks come prepared. They come packed. They got luggage. And the thing is, just because it has baggage doesn't mean you have to claim it. I know. There's a lot of play on words, and I apologize in advance if it's too cheesy, but it's the truth, okay? You're not accepting the baggage that comes with the setback. Instead, you're accepting the fact that things can and will go opposite of what I prefer in life, okay? And that's really important because when things happen, a lot of times, like for example, if you don't get chosen for a position or for like in an application for a school, a lot of times we decide to take on the baggage of that means I'm not smart, I'm not good, and that's not what that means, right? And so if you have to get the mindset of if this happened before, it can happen again. That's the part you're accepting, right? And this is really important because what we don't want to do is give the setback all the power, which is something that we tend to do, right? And when we do that, it's kind of like you're telling yourself it's impossible for me to make a turnaround. Like I'm stuck on shock. I'm surprised. This is so shocking. And that kind of makes you feel like that it's impossible to turn around from it if you're so like floored by it. But more so, it's kind of like you give the setback all the power, which takes away your accountability in it, which then like this is where a lot of self-pity comes into play. And I want to talk about that a little bit because that's when we're kind of like life is happening to me, right? We've all maybe been that person or heard somebody do that of everything in my life is going bad or so much things have gone wrong that if I don't have this area right in my life, it's not my fault. Like your father wasn't present or your mother traumatized you. If you now lack skills in terms of if you decided to be a parent and now you don't nurture your child in those areas in which you've been broken, is that your mother and father's fault? That may have contributed to the certain skills or certain strategies or coping mechanisms that you have lacked, but the fact that you don't have them, can we blame that? No, this is all about accountability. At some point, you have to grab the reins. And so what's so good, oh my goodness, actually, I'm currently reading this book. And it's called, hold on, I got it right here. Where you at? Where you at? I need to stop singing songs when I'm on this podcast. It's called Safe People: How to Find Relationships That Are Good for You and Avoid Those That Aren't. And this book is by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. I actually came across this book in that coaching group that I'm a part of. They have a book club, and they make great recommendations, and this was one of the recommendations. And even though I was like not reading it on par with the remainder of the group, I'm still keeping with it and reading it at my own tempo because it's been really impactful. But something that I love that the author, there's two authors, but one of them, they're explaining in this one part, and they bring up surprises. And I was like, my, in my Johnny Gill voice, okay? They bring up surprises, and he says, let's say, maybe I forget if he said you're walking down the street or you're driving. Probably walking down the street. We're going to use that example, and I'm going to add a little sauce to it. But I know exactly what point this man is making. He said, let's say you're walking down the street and you get hit by a car. In what world, in summary, I'm summarizing, would we expect the person who hit us with the car to go to therapy for us? First of all, let's start sooner than that. Pick you off the street. Somebody might. They might take you to the hospital, but even if they wait, there's hit and runs, but even if they wait, what world are we thinking that they're responsible to take us to the hospital, to make our insurance claims, to perform the surgery or schedule us for surgery, to perform physical therapy? We would never expect that. Despite the liability, despite the accountability on their part, we still have a responsibility for our healing. And you're not expecting them to schedule you for or to position you in a place where you can get better. And so like a lot of us by setbacks, you're literally getting smacked, hit by a car, and you just laying on a curb saying, well, somebody better come pick me up. You setback, you better come over here and pick me up. You better come over here and schedule me with my therapist. You better come over here and schedule me with, I don't know, anything else that you need. They're not going to do it. The setback itself, first of all, a lot of times a setback is just a situation. It's not necessarily a person. There's probably a person somewhere in there that's responsible. But just listen, let's talk about setbacks. Let's not point no fingers. It's easy for us to talk about the people who are responsible. We know those aspects. But what about when it's just like what we like to call act of God or whatever? Sir, ma'am, just listen to the word setback. Like if setback was a person, would you invite him or her to your party? I would invite her. Just the word surprise, or if surprise was a person. Surprise, would you want to invite? I wouldn't invite her to my party. She sounds like if she's a mom and it was her job to bring the snacks to the soccer game, she forgot. You don't sound stable, surprise. You don't sound stable. You don't sound like you're dependable. I don't bang with you. So let's stop. Let's do ourselves a favor and stop waiting for the surprise or the setback to do us a favor and get us right. Amen. Amen. Yeah. So that step was a lot, but again, that was the mindset step. So everything else from here is going to go a lot quicker. But it's just so important. And I was thinking of this example because it really segues into the next step. When I said that, if it happened before, it can happen again. I hear in that, bracing yourself for a setback, right? And then I was thinking about kids. I was thinking about the kids again because they bad. No, I'm kidding. I was thinking about kids, and whether you're a parent or not, if you have a child in your life that you care about or you guide, whether as a coach or a teacher, a mentor, an aunt, an uncle, whatever it is, we often tell them things aren't always going to go your way. All right. And when we're saying that, we're not saying that in a malicious sense of things aren't always going to go your way. There are people who just like to get out about it with kids. I don't get it. Like they got beef with any kid, anywhere, anytime. But most of us, when we say that, it's from a place of compassion, right? We want to teach our kid, it's from a place of love and protection, to brace yourself for what the world has to offer. I just imagine, I'm sorry, y'all, again. Yeah, if you hear, you used to my imagination and whatever else. But I just imagine this game of like dodgeball, right? In terms of, I will want to tell my kid, like out of love. And I know it hurts because you don't want to blow up their bubble, right? They have this bubble of innocence. And a lot of times it's hard as a parent or again, whoever you are, to find that balance of they're so innocent, but if I don't tell you, if you don't hear from me that like life is like a big game of dodgeball, right? And the second you step out this door, there are going to be balls literally flying left and right. Some are going to be aimed directly for you. Like, can you imagine that conversation with your kid? I would feel terrible. Some, guess what, may not even be aimed at you, but you'll just be like a casualty. Sometimes it's not even about you. You just got hit by crossfire. But even though this hurts to like tell you that, I want you to brace yourself, right? We think about our core, like when you're really braced, when your feet are firmly planted. So not only can you, first of all, like Marty Marr said, bob and weave. I want my kid to bob and weave. Like, you don't have to get hit. But if and when you do, because if this is going to be a lifetime thing, you'll get hit. If your core is strong, if you're braced, you might not stumble. It just might roll off of you. And even if you get really hard, you might stumble back, but you don't have to fall. And guess what? Even on those instances where you get hit really hard and you fall, we all know what a braced fall looks like. Less injury compared to a fall where you're just like willy-nilly out here, no stance, not on guard, nothing. And let's take it a step further. I would want to tell my child, you really want to take this up a notch in a strategy of life? Catch some of those balls. Actually, catch hella balls and chuck them back. Like, chuck that ball back at fear of success. You see that? Knock him out the game. You see that insecurity in that corner? Knock her out the game. I want you to come out on top. And so even though this pains me to tell you this, I have to, because I want you to win. And so we have to like get used to speaking to the children inside of us, like that broken kid, that scared kid, the one that doesn't want to face the music, that life is going to suck. Sometimes you do nothing wrong. You're just hit. And it's not fair. But get your head in the game. Like they said on High School Musical. I won't sing. I'm tempted. I'm tempted to start singing. I'm not going to do it. You got to get your head in the game. And you got to check it back and win. Right? So that's what I see bracing yourself as. And that's acceptance and awareness. So the practical steps of acceptance and awareness are such. There's probably more steps, but prayer and meditation are a great way to get aware and accept the way you're feeling in a non-judgmental fashion. Therapy, oh my gosh, therapy, because they ask them probing questions and you just be like, what is this person doing? You're not giving me no steps. Tell me what to do in my life. And they just ask that right question and you answer for yourself. You be like, wow, light bulb moment. I'm aware. And journaling, I'll just say, I'm going to give you the prompts that my coach gave me years ago. I journal so much that now I feel like, even though I still do it, I don't do it as much because I feel like I'm automatically going through the steps in my mind and I'm aware of, oh, this is why you want to smack her. Because you're triggered from XYZ. So the prompts that I use to journal were given to me by my coach, and they are the following. What am I mad about? What am I sad about? What am I anxious about? And what am I glad about? Journal those 4 prompts daily. And this is what I'll say. I used to wake up certain mornings thinking, girl, you fine. Life is good. I ain't got nothing to journal about. And once I start clickety-clacking on that laptop, I'll be like, slash them, dash them, put them in that crack. And I'm like, wow, that was dark. We just thought we were okay. And then and I'm bawling, crying because I wasn't aware. It didn't come from my subconscious to my conscious yet till I journaled. Okay. So the other thing is, I think journaling is a great, gives you a great track record of improvement, but also those areas that are still constantly coming up. Like, I'm like, if I journal every day about, about this and I'm crying about it, clearly I didn't deal with the source. Or now I'll go back and say, actually, I'm better at this. So, it's a good track record. All right. Next step. So using all of that, we talked about awareness. We talked about acceptance. The second step is accessing your arsenal. And I'm going to just say it like this. This is where we get bad about it. If the setback is the enemy, how do you combat the setback? This is your place that you go to war. Okay. With the setback, because it sometimes feel like war. You're combating all those negative thoughts and all those negative feelings, and this is that area. So if you think about like people who like Game of Thrones, GOT, that was me. I love it. House of Dragons. Anyway, shows like that, anything like that always has me in a chokehold. I will watch it forever. I like, though, you'll see often when it's wartime that somebody says, open the arsenal, right? And what is this arsenal? What I like about it is they're not saying go and start an arsenal. They're saying open something that's readily available, that has the weapons you need depending on the type of war you're fighting. This is where we say, okay, for this type of setback, I'm going to use coaching. Or for this type of setback, I'm going to use therapy. Or for this setback, I'll use mentorship. For this, I'll use that. For what are the weapons that you have stored, right? And so coaching and mentorship, I'll just talk about those two briefly. They're really important because the way I see coaching, people often say coaching gives you speed, right? I've heard Nehemiah Davis, a lot of different people say that statement. And it makes sense because a coach is someone who they've done all the failures. They've done all the experiences. They've done all the investment, like 20, 30, 40 years of this stuff. And now they're giving you in 5 minutes what it took them 15, 20 years to learn. You see what I'm saying? So now you're at speed. And so coaching often costs, but if we looked at coaching in that way, in terms of an investment in that way, mentorship doesn't mean that mentorship is always free, but I think that a lot of times we see mentorship reflected in relationships that the mentor doesn't necessarily require payment because it's normally somebody you have a relationship formed with, whereas that doesn't necessarily need to be the case in coaching. With coaching, it could be somebody that you've seen from afar, like I've been following you. I like the way you live your life. And you can have multiple coaches because somebody might live their life well. Ideally, I would want a coach to be well-rounded. But the truth of the matter is that you might have somebody that's doing well in this one area, but you might not necessarily want to have them coach other areas. Now, I do think life is integrated. Meaning if they're struggling and, that probably boils over in other areas. However, my point is you can have a business coach, you can have a marriage coach, you can have a life coach, and et cetera. However, a mentor is often from a place of relationship. And this is actually the investment part of mentorship, meaning this, have you done the relational work to have people already a part of your arsenal, like your support system? And in that support system should be mentors. Like we have Relational Intelligence. I referenced this book, I'm pretty sure, before, by Dr. Darius Daniels, a great book on, in summary, who should you have on your life bus, but not just that, and what seats. So sometimes we have people on the wrong seats and it goes through the 4 different types of relationship and et cetera, et cetera. But have you done the work to pinpoint those people who are mentors in your life and then have you fostered that relationship, right? Because a mentor doesn't have to, if you pay a coach, they're like, I'm paid, not to say that they don't care about your progress, but again, that's that investment. And so as a result, they want to do a good job. But for a mentor, oftentimes they're choosing to agree to what the area that you're asking them to influence you in, right? So is not just a one-sided street of you choosing. We make the mistake of thinking, I chose a mentor. You're my mentor. The person has to equally choose you in terms of, I see good soil. I see a place where I want to take my time to influence this person. Because for me, a mentor is often I like to call it passive strategies. Meaning, in short, you're going to hit places in life you don't know what to do. You don't know where to turn, left or right. Just having a person say, don't do that or do this can save you a world of hurt. And it doesn't, again, negate us from having responsibility for doing our research and stuff like that. But just imagine, I could think of you being a college student. You don't know where to get financial aid if that's something you want to do responsibly, hopefully, because we all got a testimony. We got a testimony from student loans. But somebody saying, you need to fill out a FAFSA. Do this. You don't know what FAFSA is, but thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to go figure it out. And you saved me a world of trying to figure out things I didn't understand. You're an entrepreneur. This is your first time trying to get a loan. You don't know what banks might have the best loans or best interest rates for somebody who maybe meets the check marks that you meet. And so somebody who's been there, who is you, essentially can say, go to this bank. Or don't do that, do this. Sometimes When can I tell you, don't do this or do that saves lives? Just think of all the people who, juveniles who kind of end up in delinquency. Again, not taking away accountability, or people who are in prison right now just from a quick decision of, dang, I wish I would have known better. I wish I would have thought better. I wish even somebody would have intervened in my heightened emotions of me making bad decisions and said, don't do that. And you got to wish that you would have listened too, because we play a role in that. So that's how I see mentorship. And I see it so powerful of the do this and don't do that. It can really save lives. So anyway, Andrew Nguyen often speaks about the responsibility that we have in mentorship. I kind of look to, she don't know me. She don't know me. If you, I've never heard of her. She used to be the CEO for PepsiCo, and I heard her speak, listen to some videos about her, and I was like, I love this lady. And I kind of went down a binge of just looking up videos on what Andrew Nguyen has to say. But something that I love that she talks about mentorship a lot. What I love is that she introduces a great perspective when it comes to, nurturing relationships that we have for mentors, because sometimes we can get into a place where we think I need to follow everything that the mentor says. And she talks about how when you have a mentor, it's not that you have to listen to everything that they say. However, where some of us go wrong is that if the mentor gives you a piece of advice, you don't want to follow it. You don't follow it. You don't give them any feedback as to you not following it or why you didn't. And then you fail. Well, maybe even once that would be enough, but do that twice, 3 times. That mentor are they going to see that again, like as good soil? Like, why? They're going to feel like I'm wasting my breath. But she said for her, what she always did with her mentors is that, one, for the most part, she's probably taking their advice because, again, these are people that have guided her through her career. But when she doesn't, she tells them, I'm not going to do what you recommended. And here's why. She's done her research on her alternatives. And so now if she fails, she feels comfortable enough to go back to them, and they're receptive enough for her to say, okay, this is like what went wrong. And maybe they might have insight, or she can share what she thinks went wrong. And if it goes well, then again, she still has that great relationship to be like, hey, I tried this and went well. And the point is, the mentor, again, is somebody who's emotionally, mentally in a place where they will celebrate you. They want to see you do well. They want to see you grow. They see themselves in you. And so you demonstrating that there's a way to get there doing something else, just pure joy. And so that's our second step. Remember, it's all about the who's and the what's. Like, do we keep in our back pocket, in our arsenal to help us combat hard moments, setbacks. And the practical examples that I used were mentorship and coaching, but of course there could be a myriad of things that you keep in your arsenal. And don't be afraid to share those with us and other listeners. Okay, we've now adopted our mindset of awareness and acceptance, and we've now accessed our arsenal. The third thing that we're going to do is assign ourselves to something new. Oftentimes we equate the term something new with impulsivity, and that is not what we're encouraging or referencing here. When you're on a wrong path, for example, you will most definitely encounter hard moments and setbacks. The issue is very often on the right path, you still encounter hard moments and setbacks. And so this step is really kind of all about differentiating, right? So in this step, sometimes, absolutely, when you hit a setback, you may need to do a completely new thing. But what I want to stress is that in a step, you may just need to do a new thing within an old thing. So let's break down what that means. Surprise, let's use an example of a kid again. This is the episode for the kids, right? Well, we can learn so much from them, right? So imagine you got a kid, you're taking them to the playground, you're like, get all your stuff, get all the things, the binky, the blanket, your favorite stuffed animal. You get to the playground, they realize, I left one of those things home that I really, really enjoy. And so now oftentimes kids respond from a place of, okay, well, this trip is over. It's to shut it down. I'm having the worst day and there's nothing else, right? And so a lot of times we would tell that kid, hey, you left that home, but does that mean you cannot have any joy in any other way, look around. You're at a playground. There's slides, there's swings for the dramatic kids that are like, my life is really over, because they really feel that way, right? Well, here is us speaking to that kid inside of us. A lot of times when we hit surprises, when we hit setbacks, we think, well, that's it. Like, this relationship ended. If I don't have a relationship with this person, I don't think I'm going to have a relationship, right? If I don't have friendship with that friend that has been my friend since college, and now things are changing in our lives due to season, I don't think I'll ever get sisterhood or brotherhood or friendship in another place or in another way. And you just think of all the ways that we essentially tell ourselves, pack it up. It's over. But no, like, it's not. You just have to reframe, and you have to look, okay, you didn't get joy, or you didn't get love, or you didn't get friendship in this way, but does that mean you're not entitled to it at all? Like, what else around here can do that for you? And so that may look like new relationships coming into your life from outside sources that you maybe were never open to. But that doesn't have to be something malicious towards your old relationship. Like, maybe some old relationships, yes, they've run their course, but maybe there's just, again, with the new thing within an old thing, maybe now you guys just support each other in a different way. It's change, it's prioritization, is refocusing, but it doesn't mean that you're no longer entitled to a good thing that you had. And so, again, using an example of, let's say you apply for a position and you didn't get it. Let's assign ourselves to something new within this very process. Maybe you need to go back and backtrack, like, okay, did I interview well? Was my resume the best that it could be? It doesn't have to be that you're not qualified. Like, character and competence, right? One of those things gets you in the room. If your character gets you in the room, the only thing that's going to make you stay is your competence. If your competence gets you in the room, the only thing that makes you stay is your character, right? And so both are very important. And so the good thing about checking your competence, like, all right, I checked my resume. Everybody says my resume is pretty good. My interview skills, I think I did pretty well. If that's the case, hold your peace. Great news. It wasn't on you, right? So maybe another candidate was better suited, or maybe life is just holding another opportunity for you around the corner that you just haven't seen yet. And alternatively, if you're like, okay, yeah, my resume needed work, or my interview skills needed work, well, guess what? This setback has just afforded you the opportunity to now assign yourself to get better there. The thing is, the quote unquote failure, it gives us the opportunity to either improve or redirect, something you don't get without that setback. And so as a result, our focus simply now just needs to boil down to, where am I needed now? Maybe your refocus, your reassignment into something new looks like you focusing on your healing. Like, maybe within your setback, you need to assign yourself to solely heal. Okay, guys, that is our step 3. And just to recap, with some of our practical steps here that I use in this episode look like checking your character and competence, as well as prioritization. And if you're anything like me and you've ever struggled with, what do I do first? Sometimes it's like, I know what to do. I can get an idea as what to do, but what first? Well, reverse engineering is a great tool you can use to help you pinpoint that. And essentially that just looks like you working backwards to uncover what you do first. So using that job application as an example, you might say, well, before I do that, I may need to practice my interviewing. Before I practice my interviewing skills, I may need to apply for a job. Before applying for a job, I may need to update my resume. Before updating resume, I might need to plan out what my recent or applicable work experiences. And so that might be your starting point. Of course, there's a lot more you can get as granular as you need to in this process. And the more, that's actually better because it helps you, again, pinpoint on very measurable steps that you can complete. And that builds your confidence in all of this. Okay. So as we bring this to a close, I must admit, guys, I wrote these tips out and it just kind of dawned on me that the ironic thing is I call the episode 3 tips to make a turnaround from a setback. And then I thought, dang, I really wish that we never made a turnaround to begin with. Meaning this, a lot of times when we hit a setback, we allow it to cause us to make an about face on everything that we've been working towards. Like we literally, on account of setbacks, turn our backs, right, on our goals, on our aspirations, and on everything we've been fighting to become. Because like the truth is, reaching a new level, that's only one part of the battle. The other part is, now I'm at this new level. Now it's going to come with all these experiences to test if I am who I say I am. It's going to come with all these experiences, not always to even test it, but to draw it out of me. And to, there are things I'm just going to have to work to uncover that I don't yet know that I have, right? We kind of talked about that in our, fun fact on episode 1 on skills and knowledge that intelligences that we have, and we just haven't uncovered them yet. And so we're at this new level, and this new level is here to reveal that. Like we've gotten here, but the next part is us fighting to dig up all those treasures, right? And the setback hits. And before we can claim what's actually ours, we make an about face. And so introducing that slingshot imagery again. I mean, I don't know what slingshot y'all be thinking about. I'm always thinking about Bart Simpson, slingshot. But like the rock is in the slingshot. It's set back. It's drawn back. But it's never turned around, guys. Like the setback, that teaches me, like the setback doesn't have that power. It literally can't force you to turn your back on things. We do that because we don't want to face, like, of course, who would want to face that? Like, let's say you're at level C and it's like, oh, I'm aiming for level A by the end of this year. You hit a setback. And this setback it just drew you all the way back to D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. You know your alphabet thanks to Sesame Street. Sometimes all the way to level Z. And that's not funny. That's painful as heck. And who wants to face that? Like, who wants to be at level Z? Like, dang, I was complaining about level C, and now I would give anything to be at, like, anywhere near that level. But here's the thing. We must face it. That's what those 3 steps were. When we're getting awareness, accepting things, using our arsenal, and assigning ourselves to new things, we're only able to do that because we kept our eye on the prize, right? And when we're set back, I know we talked about how we're catapulted, but I just want to add on like a little bit more understanding to that. So we talked about, right, the fact that we get speed. And I just want to bear with me to have a little geeky moment. Speed is literally distance over time, right? So for us, that looks like that over this time period, this is how far I've traveled. This is what I accomplished. This is the course in 1 year. This is the degree in 4 years. This is the, business launched after XYZ time period, right? So that's our speed. We get that from being set back and set off. We also talked about, I'm pretty sure, how we get momentum, meaning all momentum is well, not all, it's great, is you take that speed and now you throw your mass in it. I'm going to get real geeky, y'all. Like you put your weight in it. You just got weightier, right? And so it's easier to stop a small snowball, but a whole ginormous avalanche, you try to now stop that, you're going to have problems. What does that look like with us? As I'm set back, yeah, my speed is one thing, but as I'm getting weightier and now my emotional development because of my failures, I'm getting weightier in my spiritual strength because of my failures. I'm getting weightier in my relationship skills because of my failures. I'm getting weightier in how I lead myself, self-leadership because of my failures. Now, this time around, when I go back to tackle what I quote unquote failed at, it's going to be much harder to stop you. It's going to be so much harder to stop you because you got that momentum. Your weight is in it now. And the last thing that I don't think we talked about that this episode is perfect to introduce is you gain clarity. Like set all the way back there, you see things from a vantage point that you didn't see close up. Like we're talking about vision. Of course, my vision is going to be more clear now that I've quote unquote failed. And now I know where I'm going and I'm redirected, right? Due to this rejection. Of course, my vision is going to be more clear because I know what I want more. prayerfully. That's the hope. And so you got to keep clear vision. It's not what you're seeing. Again, this all ties into what we said we all go forward is about. We're more than what our reality says we are in this very moment. You keep vision as to who you are, what you want, because you got to aim. And when you're let off, when you're catapulted with that speed and momentum, you'll land for exactly where you were aiming for, because you held that thought that of who you were, not of who you've been, not what's been fact about you in the past, but what's your truth. You've held on to that in this whole situation. So that is our episode for today. As promised, I'm going to hit you guys with a fun fact. We really went over time, but it was a really great discussion. At least I hope it was for me, and I hope it was for you guys too. So let us share our fun fact. Fun fact. Did you know an arsenal is defined as a place or worksite where armor and weapons are made, maintained and repaired, and stored for a kingdom? Did you also know that in modern times, an arsenal is defined as a collection of weapons or military equipment that a country, a group, or person has? That's right. People have arsenals. Well, I think we've kind of proven that in this episode today, but reading that definition, a few words stand out to me. Words like armor, weapons, collection of, and worksite. Armor stands out because you can't go at every setback on a defense. You have to factor in that protection and prevention are just as important as combating and being on the reactive. Weapons stands out to me because it's plural. And as we discussed, you need a variety because setbacks come in various forms. Can you imagine a soldier only using arrows but not having swords? Or in times of now, a soldier only having a rifle but not any pistols? I think we would say that soldier is prepared for wars of distance, but not necessarily prepared for wars of close contact. That can look like us dealing so assertively and so well with setbacks that come at the hand of a stranger, but yet struggling and crumbling when setbacks come in closer proximity, like from someone that we're related to or that we love and trust. Dr. Anita Phillips, who is a therapist, a life coach, and a minister, often makes this statement. She says, therapy is a strategy and prayer is a weapon. You need both. Now, I know we all don't align with prayer, but I'm hoping that from that statement, we can all gather some value, no matter your walk of life. If that same soldier, for example, decided, I've got weapons, but I'm not going to use strategy, I think we all would agree that they may not fare too well, as opposed to another soldier who says, I'm going to take the time to locate what enemies are around me, assess how they're positioned, and fire off more efficiently. Well, that soldier would do a lot better. And so, yeah, that looks like us. Let's say, for example, that you've been misaligning a relationship in your life. You've been assuming someone is one thing when in fact they're another. That may lead to undesirable, unexpected outcomes. That's right. That may lead to a setback. And let's say you say, my weapon for this will be healthy confrontation. I'm going to ask their perspective on the matter, and I'm going to communicate my concerns without using any blame. That is awesome. However, if you do all of that and you don't reassess the relationship in the end to determine if you could align it more properly so that you can set more appropriate expectations and set boundaries, then my friend, you have used a weapon, but you have not used the best strategy. You have used a weapon, but you have not put an arsenal at your disposal. And so we have to recognize that we are the king and queens of our own kingdom. Or if you prefer, just remember, people have arsenals. It is up to you to learn what's opposing you. Learn your weak spots and reinforce those areas. Equip yourself. Train yourself. We said an arsenal is a work site. Get to work. It's on us to maintain our arsenal, to restore those areas in our arsenal that have been put to use and potentially injured, to store up weapons for use against future setbacks, and to issue them for use, or else we're leaving ourselves open to harm. Everyone, that is our fun fact for today. My question is, will it be your truth? And I believe it will be, because we're getting better. Hey, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of We All Go Forward podcast. As we move in the right direction, that is forward and progressing, never stagnant, we become a resource to help others move in the right direction. And the cycle continues, but only if we move. If you go and I go, then we all go forward. Let's get moving.